Check out this scarecrow, man. I want to put this in my room.
The opening scene shows a teenager leaving her work with a garbage bag as she puts a brick in the door so that it does not close. Suddenly, she hears a sound in the bushes and looks startled, and as the brick moves and the door closes, she runs off. The movie opens with Taylor, a young journalist from Glen Echo who is making a documentary about serial killers in America. She begins by introducing Jason Borges, the Crystal Lake Killer, Freddy on Elm Street, and Michael Myers at Hayden Field. All of these communities take a lot of psychological damage from the killers that strike every year. Taylor, who is at someone's house, begins to tell a story into the camera about a man who was launched in a waterfall 20 years ago. This boy is going to take revenge on those in town who killed him. Taylor introduces him. His name is Leslie Vernon. After she tells the story, the camera turns off and she says that she is nervous. Taylor goes to knock on the door, but no one is there. Suddenly, a man scares her from behind. This is Leslie Vernon, the murderer of that story. He gives them a tour of his house, showing his turtles and his books related to his work. Taylor sits down with Leslie to interview him. She asks why he scares innocent people, and Leslie laughs. He replies that Taylor is there to find out why serial killers do what they do, but he says that to explain it, she has to understand the process. Taylor asks how he does his thing, and Leslie tells her to follow him. Leslie, Taylor, and her team head to a farm in the middle of the night. In the van, Leslie explains that some guys are going to be there for the anniversary of his death, and that this year he's going to reappear. Outside the house on a path, Leslie tells Taylor that if you walk by on a moonlit night, you can still hear his mother's cries. A concerned Taylor falls silent and watches, but then Leslie starts laughing and tells her it's just a joke. The next day, the cameraman films Leslie training, who explains that he has to practice to be able to grab his victims so they don't escape. Later, Taylor, Leslie, and her team are hiding in front of a school. Here, Leslie says that after choosing a place, they have to find the group to kill, a group that is united and have a survivor girl. Taylor asks what this term is, and Leslie explains that it's the girl who survives at the end of the day. He points to a girl and explains that she is a virgin. The girl looks at the camera, and Taylor asks if that is his girl. Leslie responds by saying that she is not, that he already has one, and that he was just showing them his preparation. At night in the truck, the boys are outside a restaurant where Kelly Curtis works, a teenager who is chosen by Leslie. Leslie says that she is a virgin and tells her team that no one is allowed to come near her or talk to her. Leslie explains that every day Kelly leaves her work to take out the garbage and puts a brick in the door so the door doesn't close. Leslie puts a thread on the stone and explains to Taylor that she had to move the thread while Leslie watched from behind the plants. After doing so, Leslie and Taylor celebrate in the truck and drive away. The next day, Leslie explains to Taylor that they are going to Eugene's house, a retired murderer. Upon arrival, they greet James, his wife, who says that Eugene was in these long tubes. Leslie and Taylor go outside and with a shovel start to dig him up. He explains that he is there to control his bodily functions in case he has to pretend to be dead. Finally, they dig it up and find Eugene, who is lying down and was buried for 3 days. Inside the house, Taylor asks Eugene why he was retired. He explains that in the 70s everything was very different and that they didn't prepare like they do now. Eugene explains that there is no one like Fred, Jay, or Mike. He says that they make an art and they change the way of killing. Leslie and Eugene start talking about his future murder. Jamie proposes that her first death be the one of the librarian since Kelly spends a lot of time there. Leslie thinks it's a good idea and they say their goodbyes. Later, outside the bookstore, Leslie begins to explain the other step, in which he has to let Kelly see a newspaper about a suspect in her mother's death. This suspect would be Kelly's distant uncle. Leslie explains that he made that up and it's CGI. Kelly doesn't really have an uncle. Focusing the camera on him, Leslie slips away and puts the newspaper next to the printer. Leslie explains that he changed the computer and put her uncle's false story on it. Kelly would have to be curious about her family and ask the librarian about it. That's when Leslie would have to show up. Todd, the cameraman, films Kelly from outside. Suddenly, she sees the newspaper and asks the librarian, exactly as Leslie thought. They go to the computer and she reads everything. The librarian explains about Molly Vernon, who gave birth to a male bastard who was raped and treated as a slave. One day, he killed Molly and many more people. When the town found out about the crime, the men went to the farm and threw him into the river. Suddenly, Kelly screams as Leslie appears in a costume and kills the librarian. But a middle-aged man appears from behind and helps Kelly escape. Leslie goes out celebrating and starts shouting that they have an alibi, who is a person who represents the good and the pure. Later at Eugene's house, Leslie celebrates, explaining that Doc Halloran was a psychiatrist who visited him when he was a kid. The next day, Taylor enters the restaurant with Doug where she approaches and takes their order. Doc Halloran, who was there, approaches Taylor's table and asks why they were filming her. Kelly walks up to the table and asks who they are, so Taylor and the cameraman run away. Outside the van was Leslie waiting, who scolds her and tells her that he showed her everything about his life and she still betrayed him. He tells her that he is going to explain everything he knows to her after she starts yelling at him and asking questions. Back in the truck, Taylor tells him that she knows he is not Molly Vernon's son and asks who Dr. Halloran is. Leslie says that a psychiatrist treated him, but that he can't get close to him because he has a restraining order. Taylor screams and tells Leslie that he was using her. He responds by saying that if she doesn't want to stay, she can leave. The next day, Taylor decided to stay. Leslie shows her the house of his ancestors. In the room of that house, Taylor asks why if the victim gets into the closet, he does not attack her, and he explains that it is a code of ethics. The closet is a sacred place in which the victims are innocent. Leslie says that rule number 1 is that no one has to run away from the house. In a room, he explains that when the couple of popular teenagers start having sex, he attacks. He starts showing off his tricks, like a button where he can turn off the electricity or taking out the batteries from the flashlight. Leslie says that all of Kelly's friends are going to be drinking and taking drugs except her. The popular couple is going to go downstairs to have sex, and that's when Leslie attacks and lets the girl escape, since she is the one who screams and explains to her friends what is happening. Later, Leslie takes the body out and leaves it in the closet so that Kelly gets scared when she enters. He says that he wants Kelly in there since it's the moment when she transforms into a hero. He shows all the traps he made so they don't get away. Leslie says that the boys are going to want to escape in the car, but he is going to take out the battery. He is going to kill the drunk men and the others are going to escape to the farm. They will try to hide and escape. The alibi is going to step in and Leslie is going to have the good versus bad fight. He is going to kill him and then Kelly is going to escape to the only place she can, the canal, which is like a psychological step. If she is the chosen one, she will find a weapon and try to confront him. Later, Leslie is getting ready by doing his makeup at home. Taylor asks if he is worried about Halloran. He says no, that he is worried about Kelly and her fate. Taylor asks if he loves Kelly, and Leslie replies that he loves the idea of her and what she can become. Upstairs at the farm, Taylor and Leslie are sitting. He tells her that he is happy and starts crying. Taylor comforts him and grabs his hand. It's time for the murder. Hidden above the house, Leslie explains to Taylor, Todd, and Doug that the 8 teenagers are drinking except Kelly. The cheerleader and her boyfriend arrive in the room. Leslie puts on the mask, goes into the room, and the screams of the murder are heard. Walking back into the room, a frightened Taylor tells him that she doesn't want to be there, so Leslie grabs her and pulls her out of it. Outside the truck, Leslie tells them to go, since this was his night and he doesn't want them to screw it up. Leslie greets Todd and Greg, and when he goes to greet Taylor, she says that killing is a choice and that he doesn't have to. But Leslie says that it is what he chose and it is his destiny. She grabs his face and then his hands. They greet each other and he goes back inside. Suddenly the lights go out. Taylor tells the cameraman to turn off the camera and that they can't let this happen. Taylor explains to her friends that they know what Leslie is going to do and that they can help Kelly. Taylor walks into the house with Doug and Todd and asks the teens where Kelly is. Arriving upstairs in the room, she finds Kelly having sex with a guy. Surprised, Taylor knows that she is not a virgin and tells Kelly that she has to accompany her. Taylor begins to explain about Leslie, his plan to kill them, and Kelly's role as the survivor girl. Suddenly, Kelly looks out the window and faints at the sight of Leslie. Taylor tells Todd and Greg that Leslie is changing his plans because there are more people in the house. That's when she realizes that Leslie is going to kill 2 of Kelly's friends instead of 1. Kelly's drunken friends come over to the farm and Leslie kills them both. Leslie looks out the window as Taylor, Todd, and Greg talk. Taylor grabs Kelly's hand to go to the truck, but they are surprised to see the 2 bodies already there. Running back to the house, Taylor says that they have to take care of Kelly, who asks why. Taylor says that she knows she is not a virgin and that if Leslie finds out, there will be no survivors tonight. Screaming and upset, Kelly says sorry for not being a virgin. Suddenly, Leslie bangs on the door and tries to get in. Scared, Kelly jumps out the window where the trap was and dies. Taylor and Doug run towards the farm, but Todd says that Leslie was going to chase them, so he starts running the other way thinking the killer wasn't going to catch him. Instead, Todd slips and Leslie kills him. Above the Taylor farm, Doug, Lauren, and her boyfriend hide. After talking about what was happening, Taylor comes to the revelation that she was the virgin, the survivor girl, and that from the beginning Leslie had everything planned. Taylor's friend Doug hits Doc Halloran when he sees him walk in thinking it was Leslie. Another scream is heard. Scared, Lauren and her boyfriend go up but are killed by Leslie. Taylor and Doug try to escape while Leslie was fighting Doc Halloran, though Leslie beats him up and ends up winning. Leslie runs to Taylor and Doug and hits the boy. Taylor leaves and runs to the place where they kept the weapons and grabs the first one she sees, runs towards the river path, and starts yelling at Leslie that now it was just the two of them. She prepared to fight him and hits him when she sees him, but her weapon breaks. When she goes to find it to kill him, Leslie disappears. Taylor begins to run until entering the farm. Leslie enters and starts looking around, until Taylor jumps on top of him and they start to fight. While Leslie is choking her on the floor, she pulls her weapon out from behind his back and stabs him. She puts him in the apple harvesting machine and starts moving it until Leslie heads breaks and dies. Then she grabs a bottle of gasoline and starts throwing it everywhere, grabs a match and throws it until the farm catches fire. At the end, looking from the outside, Taylor screams and cries. Doug and Doc Halloran appear and hugs her. Taylor questions who he is, and Doc Halloran responds by telling her that Leslie is just a man. I would recommend this movie to all the fans of the slasher genre. It's very funny and entertaining, and it has a lot of references to Jason Voorhees, Freddy Krueger, and Michael Myers. Thanks for watching another Essential Recap. Please like and subscribe, and leave a comment what you'd like to see next.